Welcome to one and all. This is a module 5 chapter 15 lecture number 3. The topic covered in this particular session is wireless LAN, that is 802.11. The architecture comparison. Now let us look at what is wired network. We have already discussed this in the previous session, but just a brief up. In computer terminology, a wired is used to differentiate between wireless connection and those that involves cables. A wired setup uses physical cable to transfer data between devices and computer systems. The cable can be of copper wire or a twisted pair or even fiber optics. Wired network is used to carry different forms of electrical signals from one end to other end. Most wired networks uses Ethernet cable to transfer the data between connected PCs, and Ethernet works or operates in a narrow range, and it is little bit difficult to configure the same when compared to wireless network. Whereas in a wireless network refers to use of infrared or a radio frequency signal to share information and resources between the devices. Wireless technologies are designed to reduce the time and different type of obstacles created by cable, that is cable wiring. Wireless network does not use wires for data or voice communication. It uses radio frequency waves as mentioned. Many types of wireless devices are available today, like cellular phones, uh, uh, hand-handled PCs, satellite receivers, laptops, etc. So basically the installation, if I have to compare between the installation, the wired network, it is difficult, whereas in a wireless network the installation is pretty easy. Speed and bandwidth, yes, we can have a good high speed in a wired network when compared to that of a wireless. Reliability is very high in wired, uh, but in wireless it is reasonably high, because major of the sections are on wireless network. And cables used, as we discussed earlier, here it is Ethernet, copper or optical fiber in wired, whereas in wireless network we can say we are using frequencies, microwave frequencies. Security wise, wired is good and wireless is comparatively weaker. Quality of service, wired is always rated the best. Connections setup time is almost less in wired, whereas wireless it may take some time. Devices used in wired can be hubs and switches, whereas in wireless it is routers. We have already discussed the above 2 points, that is medium and host. Medium would be those wires, and host we have already discussed, that is your network interfaces, etc. So what is this isolated LAN, wired versus wireless? The concept of wired isolation LAN also differs from that of wireless isolated LAN. In a wired set, the host is connected to switches at a link layer, whereas in an isolated LAN it is an ad hoc network as shown in the diagram. There is no physical connection between the host, different hosts. It is just via a wireless connection. So the connection between a wired LAN and a wireless LAN to the other networks, yes, as we discussed earlier, the wired network we require some kind of switches to connect to a wired network, other wired network, whereas in an wireless network all the systems within the infrastructure is connected via an access point, and then through an maybe a wired connection it can be connected to other wireless infrastructure outside the network as depicted in the diagram. Here are the few characteristics of a wireless LAN. The first one would be attenuation. Yes, the strength of the electromagnetic signal will rapidly decrease because of the signal disperses. The signal get disperses in almost all possible direction, and only a small quantity of this signal will reach the receiver. The second one is an interference, sorry. Another issue is that the receiver may receive signals not only from the intended sender, that is the sender which it has to receive the signals from, but also from other senders. Okay, and multi-path propagation. A receiver once sends out the signal. This signal may reach the sender from multiple paths, or it may even bounce back to the receiver itself because of different obstructions such as wall, etc. Error detection. Error. With the above characteristics, the wireless network, we can expect that the error and error detections are more tedious and more serious issues. This error or this unwanted signals which has been received is called as a signal to noise ratio, and this can increase drastically. In the next part, let us try to understand the access control used. Unlike wired, in which we use CSMA CD, here we use CSMA CA. Now, what is CSMA CA? Carrier sense multi-access collision avoidance. Instead of detection, it is avoidance protocol for the carrier transmission of 802.11. That is nothing but wireless. Uh, uh, Unlike CSMA-CD, which deals with the transmission after collision has occurred, CSMA-CA acts to prevent the collision before they happen. So it detects and it acts in advance. How does it work? In CSMA-CA, as soon as a node receives a packet that is to be sent, it checks to be sure that the channel is clear. If the channel is clear, then simple, the packet is sent across. If the channel is not clear, the node waits for randomly chosen period of time and then checks again to see if the channel is clear. This period of time is called as back off factor and is also counted down with the back off counter. If the channel is clear, when the back off counter reaches 0, the node transmits the packet. And if the channel is not clear, when the back off counter reaches 0, the back off factor is set again and the process keeps on repeating. Why is CSMA CD not an applicable protocol for wireless transmission? Basically, there are three reasons: lack of duplex link and power supply. The wired connection works on a duplex link, that is, it keeps on sending the data and receiving it. But in a wireless condition, it is not possible, and even the power supply might be a challenge. The second one is a hidden station problem. Because of the hidden station problem, in which a station may not be aware of another station transmission due to some obstacle range. There might be a wall, as we have already discussed, so the collision may occur but may not get detected. So even that is a problem. And signal fading, as and when the distance keeps on increasing between two stations, the signal can fade, and this creates a problem, and that is the reason CSMA CD is not used, but CSMA CA, that is is used for wireless transmission. So 802.11, that is nothing but your wireless LAN. It was IEEE has defined the specification for wireless LAN and called it as 802.11. And in the next coming slides we will talk about basic service set, how it works. We will also talk about extended service sets. So the architecture of an wireless LAN defines the basic service set as a building block of wireless LAN. So what is this basic service set, or we can also call it as BSS? It is of an IEEE 802.11. Each BSS has roughly corresponds to the coverage of number of stations. The center concept or the important concept of BSS is that all stations must hear each other, that is, be within its radio or optical range. The association between station is dynamic. Station can come in and out or range or be switched off. To become a member of BSS, each station must become associated with the network. These associations are dynamic and are managed and maintained by the use of distribution system services, that is nothing but DSS. IEEE 802.11 architectures are integrated with others using portals. These are the point at which IEEE LAN connects to an IEEE 802.11 distribution system. Let us try to understand two types of basic service set, that is BSS. A basic service set forms an ad hoc self-contained network with station-to-station traffic following directly, receiving data transmitted by another station and only filtering the traffic based on MAC address of the receiver. In the architecture shown in the figure, the station can form a network without the need of an AP. They can locate one another and agree to be a part of a BSS. It is called as an ad hoc architecture. It is a standalone network and cannot send data to other BSS when access points are not present. A BSS with an access point is referred as infrastructure BSS. The next one is extended service set. This is nothing but combination of more than one BSS. An extended service set ESS is made up of two or more BSS with APs. An ESS consists of one or more extended interconnected WLANs integrated into LAN that appears as a single BSS to logical link control layer. Any client or station can disassociate from one AP and associate to another AP depending upon the traffic threshold and the signal strength. When BSS are connected, stations within the reach of one another can communicate without using an AP. However, the communication between a station in a BSS and outside the BSS occurs only via APs, that is access point. The station types are basically classified into three. The first one is non-transition. In this case, the station either it is not moving or moving within the BSS. A station with a BSS transition mobility can move from one BSS to another BSS but within the ESS zone, whereas a station in an ESS transition can move mobility can move from one ESS to another ESS. This slide explains the MAC layer of IEEE 802.11, that is nothing but wireless LAN. So in data link layer again we have two sublayers, one is LLC and MAC sublayer. MAC layer provides a functionality for several tasks like control medium access, can also offer support for roaming, authentication and power conservation. The basic service provided by MAC are mandatory asynchronous data service and an optimal time boundary service. The MAC layer of 802.11, 802.11 has sublayers. The first one is distributed coordination function, nothing but DCF. DCF uses CSMA CA as an access method, as wireless LAN can't implement CSMA CD. It only offers asynchronous services. and above DCF is PCF. PCF stands for Point Coordination Function. Uh, the PCF is implemented on top of DCF and mostly used for time service transmission. It uses centralized free polling access method. As seen in the diagram, explains you the structure of how a MAC layer of IEEE 802.11 looks like. Now, let us try to understand how does the CSMA CA works. Now, before we go ahead, let us understand what is hidden station problem, or we can also call it as hidden terminal effect, and collision avoidance mechanism, or collision during avoidance mechanism. And NAV stands for network allocation vector. So let us first talk about hidden terminal with respect to the example. Let's consider we have four terminals A, B, C, D. A and C cannot hear each other. Why? Because there is an obstacle or there is a signal attenuation. So when A wants to communicate to C, there might be a collision in between because of B. The collision at B is possible. Collision if two or more nodes transmit at the same time. But by using CSMA still makes sense, because even before the communication starts, in CSMA, it makes sure that the entire bandwidth is reserved. For data transmission. This is nothing but collision. This happens after the initial handshake. And the next problem, what we see is collision avoidance mechanism. Problem is two nodes hidden from each other transmit complete frames to the base station. There is a lot of wastage of bandwidth in this case. So how do we resolve this problem? So the simplest solution for this is RTS and CTS approach. What is RTS? It is ready to send, and CTS is clear to send. These are two subtypes in a control frame, which we will discuss in the future slides. Okay. So before sending, so what is going to happen? Sender sends a short RTS request. Okay, so there will be an RTS request sent across. The receiver will reply with a short CTS request, that is clear to send. The CTS reserves, when the CTS is received, the entire bandwidth is received for the data transfer, and once the data transfer is completed, the destination or the receiver will send an acknowledgement. So this is nothing but RTS CTS concept. We also have one more terminology as per your figure, that is short interframe space, that is between an RTS request and between a response from the destination, there will be a small interval of time. This is called as short interframe space. So just to conclude, what exactly is going to happen is the sender is going to send a request to the destination saying that, hi, are you free to receive? And if there is no collision, and if there is no other station transmitting, then that entire the destination will send a message saying clear to send, and the bandwidth is reserved. Okay, and then once the data is totally sent across from the source to destination, after a small gap of SIFS, an acknowledgement is sent back to the source. So this is how an CSMA, CS and NAV works. So continuation to this concept, what is NAV? NAV is nothing but network allocation vector. Now, when a source is communicating to the destination, initial request of RTS is sent. How will the other users or other stations understand the network is will be occupied? So that the solution is given by network allocation vector. The station that when a station sends an RTS frame, it includes the duration of time that it will occupy the channel. The stations that are affected, that is the other stations, by this transmission creates a timer that is nothing but n network allocation vector that shows that for how long the channel will be occupied between the A and B, and then once that time allocation is completed, the other station can again send an RTS request for their destination. This is how the network allocation vector works. MAC frame format. The MAC layer for frame format consists of 9 fields. The figure depicted in the slide gives you an basic structure of IEEE 802.11 MAC frame format. Okay, so let's start with the first one, that is nothing but the frame control. It is a 2-byte long field which defines the type of frame and some control information. It also has 11 subfields within it. Let us try to understand each one of them. The first one would be a protocol version. It is a 2-bit long and it indicates the current protocol version. The second one is again a 2-bit long. It is nothing but type, which determines the function of frame, that is whether it's a management frame, whether it's a control frame, or whether it is a data frame. The third one is a subtype. It is a 4-bit long field which indicates the subtype of the frame, like 0000 for association request and 1000 for beacons. So 2DS, it is the bit long field. It is a 1-bit long field which set indicates that the destination frame is for the DS, that is a distribution system. From DS is a 1-bit long field which when set indicates the frame is coming from the DS. So we have more frag, that is nothing but more fragment. It is a 1-bit long field which when set to 1 means that the frame is followed by other fragments. So we have one frame followed by other fragments of that particular frame. Retry is a 1-bit long field. If the current frame is a retransmission of an earlier frame, then the bit is set to 1. Power management, it is a 1-bit long field which indicates the mode of the station after successful transmission of the frame. If set to 1, the field indicates that the station goes to a power save mode, and if the field is set to 0, the station is active. More data, it is a 1-bit long field which is used to indicate a receiver that the sender has more data to send. And we have WEP, that is nothing but the standard security mechanism for 802.11, and order, that is the last one, or we also call it as received. It is a 1-bit long field. If this bit is set to 1, the received frame must be processed in a strict order. Following frame control, the next 2-byte long is the duration ID. It is a 4-bit long field which contains the value indicating the period time which medium is occupied. Then we have addresses, which is from address 1, address 2, address 3 and address 4. These are all 6 bits long. The meaning of address depends upon the DS bit bits in the frame control. We have sequence control, and we have the main data, and the last one is nothing but CRC, or also FCS, that is nothing but a cyclic redundant checksum. As discussed in the previous slide, here are the list and explanations of the subfield of frame control, starting with version, type, subtype, 2DS, that is defined later from DS, and more flag, retry, power management, WEP and reserved. So we have already discussed this in the previous slide. First 2 bytes which we have already. IEEE 802.11 addressing mechanism. The IEEE 802.11 addressing mechanism specifies 4 cases defined by the value of 2 flags in FC field, that is the first field, that is to DS and from DS. Each flag can be either 0 or 1, resulting in 4 different situations. The interpretation of the 4 addresses in the MAC frame depends upon the value of these flags. So just given in the tableau column below, or in the tableau column in the screen, you can see those 4 different cases. Now let us look at the addressing mechanism cases, how each case is dealt. In case 1, in this case the DS is 0 and from DS is also 0. This means that the frame is not going to a distribution system. Why? Because the 2DS is 0 and is not coming from a distributed system, because the from DS is also 0. Thus the frame is going from one station in a BSS to another without passing through a distribution system. Note that BSS AP, that is access point, could be involved in transmission as a relay, and its address will be in address 3 field as shown in the figure. The ACK, that is the acknowledgement frame, should be sent to the original sender. Case 2. In this case DS is 0 and from DS is 1. This means that the frame is coming from a distributed system, which is shown in an yellow color, which is attached to an AP. Thus the frame is coming from an AP and going to a station. Note that the address 3 field contains the address of the original sender of the frame from another BSS. So address 3 in this case is A, and the acknowledgement should be sent to AP. In case 3, in this case 2DS is 1 and from DS is 0. This means that the frame is going to a distributed system because the 2DS is 1. Thus the frame is going from the station to AP. Note that the address 3 field contains the final destination of the frame in another BSS. In this case it is address would be B, that is the station address would be B. And in the last case, that is the fourth case, in this case the 2DS is 1 and from DS is also 1. This means this is in this case in which the distribution system is also a wireless. The frame is going from one AP to another AP in a wireless distribution system. We do not need to define the address if this distribution system is a wired LAN, because the frame in these cases have format of wired LAN frames. Let us try to understand what is this hidden station problem in 802.11. Okay, so you have two ovals which are overlapped, and there are 3 stations. The first station on the left oval, which is in blue in color, has a range has an range of B, and also on the right hand side we can see a station which has a particular range, and A, that is the station in middle, will be will have we can also connect to B as well as C. So the station B has a transmission range shown in the left oval, and every station in this range can hear whatever signal is transmitted by B. Station C is outside the transmission zone of B, that is range of B. Same way, the station C has a transmission range shown in the right oval, and every station in the range can hear any signal transmitted by C. The station B is outside the transmission range of C. Station A is an area covered both by B and C and detects collision when B and C tries to transmit simultaneously. Now let us assume that station B is sending data to station A. In the middle of the transmission, the station C also has the data to send to station A. However, station C is out of B's range and transmission from station B cannot reach station C. Therefore, station C thinks that the medium is free and it starts sending data to station A, which results in a collision at station A because station A is simultaneously trying to receive data from B as well as C. In this case, we say that the station B and C are hidden from each other with respect to station A. Hidden stations can reduce the capacity of the network because of possibility of the collision. Note that if the station C is sending to station not in station B range, its receiving station will not be affected, but station A still have a collision if station B is sending to station A at the same time. This is nothing but a collision or a hidden station problem. The CTS frame in CSMA-CA handshake can prevent the collision from a hidden station. A detailed explanation about this is given in the next slide. Now, how do we solve this hidden station problem? Let us look at the diagram. It will give us an solution. So first, the RTS frame from the station B, that is a request frame from the station B, reaches the station A but not the station C. Why? Because it is out of range. However, because both the station B and C are within the range of station a CTS, that is clear to send frame, which also contains the duration of data transmission from B to A, reaches both the stations B and C. Station C knows that some hidden station is using the channel and refrains from transmitting until the duration is over. In this way, this is a useful handshake which will prevent an hidden station transmission problem. Let us understand what is this exposed station problem. In this case, we have 4 stations. Station A would like to communicate to station B, as well as station C would like to communicate to station D. Let us see what is the situation over here. Station A is transmitting to station B, while station C wants to send some data to station D, which can be sent without any interference with transmission from station A to B. Okay, but however, station C is exposed to transmission from station A. Why? Because when the channel is getting booked, the station A is also going to send an clear to send acknowledgement, clear to send message to station C as well. It hears what a station A is sending and thus refrains from sending. It's not going to send. In other words, the station C is too conservative and wastes a lot of capacity in the channel. This is an exposed station problem. So in continuation to the previous slide, this is how it is going to look. Station A wants to communicate to station B and station C would like to communicate to station D. When an RTS signal is sent from station B, it also reaches C and hence restrains station C to communicate to station D, even though there will be no collision. But during the same time, if station C is planning to communicate to station A, then the collision domain, there will be a collision between station A and station C. To explain you in a simpler word, when A is communicating to B, A also sends an RTS message to C, and C is free to communicate to station D, but it keeps itself restrained because it is in an exposed area and it also hears inputs given by station A. Physical layer, all these techniques, that is FHSS or DSSS, is already been discussed in previous chapters, but just to give you a briefer, frequency hopping spread spectrum, that is nothing but FHSS, is a method of transmitting radio signals by rapidly changing the carrier frequency. amongst many distinct frequency occupying a large spectral band. The change are controlled by code known to both transmitter as well as the receiver. FHSS often offers three main advantages over a fixed frequency transmission. FHSS signals are highly resistant to narrowband interface. Signals are difficult to interrupt if the frequency hopping pattern is not known. Jamming is also a difficult in the pattern is if the pattern is unknown. FHSS transmission can share frequency band with many types of conventional transmission with a minimal mutual interference. The next one is direct sequence spread spectrum, also called as DSSS. It works in a band of 2.4 gigahertz. Modulation technique is PSK. Uh, it is a spread spectrum modulation technique primarily used to reduce overall signal interference. The direct sequence modulation makes the transmitter signal wider in the bandwidth than the information bandwidth. OFDM, orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, is a type of digital transmission and a method of encoding digital data on multi-carrier frequency. OFDM has developed into a popular scheme of wideband digital communication used in applications such as digital TVs or audio broadcasting. Just to sum up, in this particular session we have spoken about wireless LAN, its architecture comparison. We also spoke about IEEE 802.11 project with its architecture, its extended service set, the framework and the control frame addressing mechanisms were also discussed in this particular session. In the next lecture, we will have an overview of what is Bluetooth. Thank you.